here we are back again with another POD video. So before we get down to the different types of elections, I'm curious if you guys know why the cheetah was so bad at hide and seek. Well, no matter where she hid, she was always spotted. So there you go. Take it all in, laugh it off, pause if you need to, and now we get back to POD. So today's video is going to be very short. It's going to be to the point. We're just going to talk specifics about elections and the different types of election. So the first one that we have is a general election. Now, this happens always on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. So this year, 2020, elections are 5 days away. They're taking place on November 3rd. That is going to be the general election. And we already talked a lot about what we vote on. And I know when we hear general election, we often just immediately go to the presidential election, which is probably the most important because, well, that person runs the country for 4 years. But it's not just the presidential election. All 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs. You also have 1/3 of the seats in the Senate. Right now, it's a little bit more than 1/3. In 2020, it's 35 seats that are up. But the general election is going to be held every 4 years. And, you know, we vote on different measures. This time, we talked about the two that are being voted on. We vote on state auditor, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We vote on state superintendent, state insurance commissioner. Those are all examples of what is voted on in the general election. So when we think of elections, this is kind of the professional, this is the big election that always gets the media coverage and is on the news for weeks and weeks before it happens. So that's the first one, a general election. We also have issue elections. And with issue elections, there's generally two different kinds. There's an initiative and there's a referendum. Now, an initiative election is a vote as a way to amend the state constitution. So the people can vote on a change in the North Dakota State Constitution, or often referred to as North Dakota State Century Code. But overall, it gives the people more of a say. It gives the people more of a decision on what's going to happen at the national or the state level up in Bismarck. The second one is a referendum. Now, a referendum differs because it's a way for the citizens to either approve or reject a state or local law. Now, probably the most important referendum from around here was dealing with the school. Instead of saying that we're building and this is just an example, this isn't what happened, but instead of just saying, all right, we're going to build a $100 million school and the taxpayers, you have to pay for it. Now, that probably would not go over well. A lot of people would be upset. A referendum, which is what happens anytime the school wants to add an addition or do a new building, that gives the citizens a way to either approve or reject their state taxes from increasing. But, you know, that's an example of another type of issue election, the referendum as that way to approve or reject it. The other one we have are special elections. Now, a special election is there's kind of two different ones. There's a runoff election as a way to determine the winner of a state or local. Now, sometimes there's 4 different people who are running for governor or 4 different people who are running for county commissioner. And the way the law is written is that you need to have, say, 40% of the vote to be able to win that job. Now, in this example of a runoff election, if you have 8 different people that are running and nobody gets that 40%, there has to be another election. And that's where we get the runoff election. It essentially is another way to make sure that we have the candidate that we want. If there's 4 people, well, if there's 8 people, the 4 people might get kicked out, and now you have a chance of reaching that 40 because you have less people. But that's going to be a runoff election. And then the last type of special election is a recall. Now, a recall is a way to remove a public official from office. Now, the one that comes to mind happened in the state of Wisconsin. There was a lot of controversy with the newly elected governor, Scott Walker, and whether or not he wanted to allow different unions to be able to negotiate and decide whether or not they should be able to decide their pay. Now, he said no, that it shouldn't be up to unions, it should be up to the employer. So, obviously, people in the union were upset. So, because so many people were upset, there is actually a recall election. meaning that they were trying to actively remove him from office. Now, when this happens a lot of times is you have a governor who holds their position for 4 years. Well, halfway through, at the 2-year term, you can have a recall. So that governor has to run again. They basically have to go through all the hoops that they went through before. And after the election, if they win, they get to keep the job for 2 more years. They don't just automatically get another 4. But if they lose that job, that new governor takes over, then that governor starts the 4 years. So anyways, there you have it. Different types of elections. I told you I was going to keep it short, try to keep it to the point. Make sure you're going on and answering the Google form because we're going to talk about these elections, and we're going to talk about really the big election that's going to take place, the general election in class on Monday.